We're really excited about the speakers that we have lined up today, and I think without further ado, we'd like to get this webinar started. So before we begin, I would like to run through a few announcements. So if anyone has anything to say to the whole group, please remember to unmute your microphone or your phone, otherwise we won't be able to hear you. I also have Laura right here next to me who will be monitoring the chat pane, and we really encourage you to submit any kind of questions that pop up that can be read aloud and answered by both our presenters and opened up for larger group discussion in the open forum at the end of our second presentation. If people run into any kind of technology challenges, Zoom does have a tech support chat pane as well. That's pretty helpful, so please use that if you are running into tech challenges. And without further ado, I'd like to run through our agenda for today. So we're going to start with a quick welcome from Gary Vansich. Our first presenters are going to be presenting from Lean, Ohio and the Ohio Department of Transportation. And we have Michael Berger and Daveen Goodman here with us today. Our second presentation is called The Culture of Innovation from the Maryland Department of Transportation. And that's going to be Jeff Cleland, who is also on the line. After that, we're going to open up the floor for some open forum discussion. So like I mentioned before, please do submit your questions. If something pops into your head, write it down, because we are going to have some time at the end of the Transportation Lean Forum today to answer some of those questions and get feedback from all the members who are with us today. Now I'm going to
real quickly.
Yeah.
Could I request Gary to go online so he can give me directions how to find you guys?
I'm sorry, who is this?
This is David Mulkey. I just sent you a Google Hangout chat. If we can talk there, we won't interrupt everybody else any more than I already did.
So we'll do that right after I do an introductory slide there. How's that?
Okay. Yep. Thanks.
And this is Gary Vansich. Again, appreciate everybody being online. We've got, as far as I can tell, 42 nodes, 42 groups of folks from across North America and into Europe. We are a community of practice. We started this in June of 2012 with 3 departments of transportation here in North America, and the interest has grown. We are very pleased and honored to facilitate this from the Colorado Department of Transportation, and this is your community of practice. Transportation Lean Forum is all of us learning together from each other. Welcome, everybody. Again, the whole purpose of a community of practice is to learn from each other and support each other. And I love what Sheryl Sandberg has to say about this. The ability to learn is truly the most important quality a leader can have, particularly leading something like the kind of transformations that we have across our departments of transportation for innovating and improving to help everybody become more mobile across the planet. And I also we like to take our inspiration from a lot of different folks here. I love what Helen Keller has to say. Alone, we can do so little, but together we can do so much. Again, the major purpose for a community of practice like our Transportation Lean Forum. And the Transportation Lean Forum is more than just these webinars. We did start in June 2012 with teleconferences, actually not even video webinars, but teleconferences. And we found that there's additional needs to support each other between these webinars. I encourage you to use the Lean Interchange Network. You see the link there, and most of you have that. We can post announcements. There's postings for all of our prior Transportation Lean Forums, a lot of terrific information from across North America and Europe about different things that people are doing. And it's wonderful to know that the challenges that any of us currently have might have actually been addressed by somebody already. We can bring that up during the webinars, and we can actually find that through the Lean Interchange Network.
Great. Thank you, Gary, for that nice introduction for the forum. And now I'm Happy to introduce Michael Berger from Lean, Ohio, and Devine Goodman from the Ohio Department of Transportation for our first presentation. So, Michael, if you could request remote control.
Okay, we are doing it right now.
Great. All right, let's get started.
Great. Well, good morning or afternoon, I guess. I'm Michael Berger from the Lean, Ohio office. And first of all, I guess, Devine and I just want to say thank you for having us participate in your community of practice. We're happy to kind of tell the story of what's going on in the process improvement world in Ohio. Again, I'm Michael Berger with Lean, Ohio. I'm the administrator of the Lean, Ohio office. And I'm going to give you kind of a high-level view of what we're doing in Ohio from an enterprise level, kind of from a statewide point of view of what's going on, how we're improving processes throughout state government. And Devine is going to then talk about kind of how it's done at the agency level with the Ohio Department of Transportation. So I've been with Lean, Ohio about 6 years now. We've been around since about 2011, and I have 15 years of state government. I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt trained through the private sector, through the Cintas Corporation. And the Lean, Ohio office is an office within the Ohio Department of Administrative Services. And our mission really is simple. It's to make government processes, state government processes, simpler, faster, better, and less costly. We are an office of 3. We're small but mighty. We're an office of 3. And we basically have three areas of service that we focus on.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure. Sorry here.
All right.
There we go. Oh,
Oop.
there's a lag.
Oh, okay. We have a little bit of a lag on our end, but we'll work through it here. So really our 3 areas of service that we focus on are events. So one of the things we do to make processes simpler in Ohio are do like lean events or Kaizen events. And there's a number of different events that we do. Devine and I are both going to talk about what we call Kaizen events. And we'll talk about that a little bit. We do a lot of training and development throughout the state. I'll talk more about that, but it's your typical belt series. You know, we do white belt all the way through black belt in Lean Six Sigma, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then one of the last things, our last kind of service areas are managing the network and communicating. You know, we find that, you know, we get agencies and we get people involved and they do events and then we do lots of training. But one of the biggest challenges really is keeping this network of people trained and people involved and communicating with them to keep them improving processes. So that's one of our kind of 3rd pillars of services that we offer. This is a high-level breakdown of kind of how we got started in 2011. I mentioned briefly that I was trained through the Cintas Corporation. So a small number of state employees, we partnered with the private sector to get our black belt through the Cintas Corporation. Okay. And we started doing events kind of in that first year in 2011. We officially became Lean, Ohio in 2012. From the Office of Accountability and Results, we became Lean, Ohio. And one of the big things that happened in 2012, you know, a lot of grassroots startup Lean programs have trouble kind of getting buy-in early on. And one of the major factors with us being to have some success early on is we got a lot of support from Governor Kasich here in Ohio. There was a lot of support from him up front to partner with the private sector and learn these tools of the trade and then apply them to helping the public sector. He even went so far as to kind of mandate that actually his direct reports, basically his directors at cabinet level agencies, self-identify 3 processes within that agency and work with Lean, Ohio, work with the Lean, Ohio team to improve those processes. So we had a lot of buy-in up front, which really helped us early on. In 2013, we started to develop more of our training programs, things like a 1-day yellow belt, which focused on kind of lean improvements in your daily life. We also had a 2-week green belt program as well. And by the end of 2013, we actually had about 120 state employees trained through the different belt programs. 2014 was a really busy year. A lot happened there. We actually developed our own belt program. And we called it Lean Ohio Boot Camp, and it was a camel belt. And yes, people actually do get a camouflage belt at the end of the training once they do a project. But not only that, and the boot camp was unique in that it focused a lot on lean tools used in government. There's even a simulation in this course. It's 4 days long that focuses on a kind of a fictitious government entity. It's really bad, has a lot of bad processes. In the simulation, the participants go through the training and actually use lean tools to improve processes at this fake agency. We also partnered with local government. So what we do is from a statewide level, we partnered with local government in 2014 and kind of gave this training to a lot of different community colleges and universities. And there was a lot of money available for scholarship programs to take training and also grants for lean projects. By the end of that year, we had facilitated our 50th Kaizen event. In 2015, we had trained at that point over 500 employees through the different BELT programs. And again, had a program where we partnered with the private sector, specifically small business owners in Ohio, to come actually work with Lean Ohio in our office, get Greenbelt trained, and work on processes that impact their small businesses within government. So that was a really unique opportunity. In 2016, we partnered with the Ohio State University Center of Operational Excellence, which is a really great opportunity because it provided our network of people trained with a lot of additional resources outside of the training that we offer internally. And in 2017, we now have over 1,000 state employees trained in Lean Six Sigma through the various belts you see up there. And maybe some of the most stats we're most proud of is, over 10,000 days reduced in start to finish process time and more than 1 million redirected hours. So I mentioned this briefly already, but one of the main tools we use is the Kaizen Event. This slide, if you're looking at the screen, shows you a 5-day cycle of what that looks like. But depending on the level of scoping and the how big the process is, it can range anywhere from about 3 to 5 days. So this is kind of the steps that we go through in that Kaizen process. And really the whole point of this Kaizen event, is the word itself, right? Kai, to break apart, and Zen for the better. So it breaks apart one single process, and then the team actually works through these different brainstorming solution ideas and getting training on lean. So by the end of the week, they've created this brand new process that's at least 50% better. And then maybe that means there's 50% less steps in the process because they've reduced a lot of waste, or maybe it takes 50% less time to actually go through a process. So that's kind of high level of how we use a Kaizen event. One thing that's really unique about this is these events only involve people that are involved in the work. So it's not a bunch of leadership at an agency or directors. It's the people that do the work that make the change. It's the people that are involved in the day-to-day activities. It's customers of the process. It's supervisors of the process. They're the ones that actually come up with the improvements. That's why we think that it really works here in Ohio. Our training and development, again, it's your standard white through black belt series. We did add that camel belt, which is 4 days of lean training for government. As you can see, the majority of our network is boot camp trained or camel belt trained. Everything camel belt and beyond involves a project. So in camel belt or in Lean Ohio boot camp, which is the same thing, we teach PDCA, and they have to do a project and report it out on an A3 before they actually get certified. And in green belt and black belt, it's of course additional days, additional weeks. We jump a lot more into the Six Sigma side of things. There are projects associated with those programs as well, and we focus on the DMAIC methodology. So again, kind of going to that third pillar that I mentioned before, network management and communication, we find to be very important. We have a really robust website, lean.ohio.gov, where we feature a lot of articles, things that are going on throughout the state. We have a lot of resources available to our belts there, and really to anyone that wants to access this information. So we use our website a lot for communicating results. We also have a newsletter that we developed this year. And what's unique about the newsletter is, it really doesn't just focus on what Lean Ohio is doing, but it's about what's happening at the agency. So we try to spotlight different projects that are going on throughout the state, different people that are working on projects, to really kind of keep people engaged with process improvement. Other things we do, we try to, again, keep the network engaged by having what we call lean liaison meetings. We do these on a quarterly basis, basically. And this was really helpful to the success of our program. Every single state agency, cabinet level agency, and even some boards and commissions actually have a lean liaison. So they are Lean Ohio's primary point of contact for improvement throughout the state. So this lean liaison at different departments, they're hands-on with their agency. They know what improvements are happening, what kind of help they need, and we work directly with them on a regular basis to kind of keep things moving in the right direction for the state. In addition to our belt training, we try to also do what we call Sharpen the Saw training, have a lot of guest presenters, things like that. And the partnership with OSU really helped with that to kind of bring in guest presenters from the private sector and other government entities to have our network kind of continue with their professional development. And kind of lastly, you know, when I mentioned before that people do these different projects and they get belts, you know, they don't just submit the projects to Lean Ohio, but they actually have to do belt presentations. So it's a way to celebrate the successes. It's a way for people to come and all come together about 4 times a year and hear what other projects are going on throughout the state. And at the end of their presentation, that's of course when we give them their belts. A couple case studies I'll cover with you just so you get an idea of kind of how we use some of the tools in government. The first case study is the Department of Taxation. So we did this a few years ago. This was with the Ohio Department of Taxation. It was their tax appeals process. And what you see on the screen there was their current state. So this is like day 1 of a Kaizen event. The people that do this work are the ones that map out this process. And as you can see, pretty massive process. So this process covers if taxpayers want to submit a petition to appeal their tax assessment each year. So Department of Taxation gets about 10,000 petitions for tax appeals each year. And basically there was multiple entry points. They would come in through different divisions, different locations. Their process in the current state was basically a first in, first out process. It wasn't really working for them because as you can see, people that would appeal their taxes in some cases on average would have to wait 18 to 32 months to actually get a resolution to their tax appeal. So the team worked through the Kaizen process, came up with new ways to do things, and actually ended up with a future process that looked something like this. As you can see, a pretty drastic reduction in steps and handoffs. But really, I guess the big takeaway is from 18 to 32 months turnaround time, the lead time was reduced to 7 to 20 days, which was pretty major. Which was pretty major and a really good success story for us. You know, one of the things they did is they got rid of that kind of first in, first out policy. You know, a lot of what they were doing, all these petitions were traveling through the process kind of all at the same speed, right, one at a time. And they'd get these petitions to appeal taxes, and their current process was all the attorneys, which they only had a few in that office, would have to review all these tax appeals. And it was just taking too much time and creating a huge backlog. So they were able to come up with a much more streamlined process so that the work can go to the right people right away. And you know, only the complex, the really difficult ones would have to go to the attorneys. They determined that their compliance office and some of their analysts could do some of the more basic appeals so that the process can move along much faster. And just one more example here. This was with our own agency, actually, the Department of Administrative Services. This was the MBE certification process. So the goal of our MBE program is to, you know, increase opportunities for minority businesses with the state. And their goal is to qualify businesses, minority business, in attaining state government contracts. And the current process you see on the screen there, it took about 14 to 38 days to kind of qualify businesses to work, minority businesses to work with the state. And that was just really too long. I mean, that's a month a business is. And that's a startup minority business is waiting to get work from the state or waiting to apply for contracts to do work. And that was just too long. So they worked through the 5-day process of a Kaizen event, and they got it down, I believe it was about 10 to 20 days. 10 to 20 days. A lot of their improvements were, you know, just identifying where waste occurs. There were a lot of redundant processes that they got rid of. And they even came up with a way to kind of fast track their process by having a front end pre-qualification for these minority businesses to kind of go through before they had to go through the state's process. So some big improvements there as well. You know, overall, over the years, from 2011 to 2017, we've seen a 66% average reduction in number of process steps, over 10,000 process steps eliminated, much better processes, over 1 million redirected hours so that more work can go to more customer-friendly services. Processes are much faster, a 68% reduction in start-to-finish process time, and again, over 10,000 days reduced. And of course, we've saved some money along the way too. So we're really proud of our efforts. Again, those are just 2 examples. You'll find a lot more information on our website. Under the results tab, you can see a lot more of the Kaizen events that we've done. And I guess another plug is we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So check us out there as well. So that's a little bit, that's high level. That's what Lean Ohio is doing from the statewide level. And there's my contact information as well. I'm going to turn it over to Devine Goodman now. And she is the administrator of the Office of Employee Development and Lean for the Ohio Department of Transportation. And she's going to walk you through kind of what they're doing at ODOT.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Michael, for that. Lean Ohio has been a leader for us too. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have had such a great start and great success here at Ohio DOT. So we're going to start with our mission. We are the Office of Employee Development and Lean. Basically, we're here to make sure we have a flexible, high-performing workforce, and Lean is a part of that. We are in the Division of Human Resources. We kind of have, like Michael said, we have 3 buckets also. Our primary responsibilities fall within the employee development arena. We also do Lean Six Sigma, and we have our learning management system administration. So I'll talk through some of those. High-level highlights of what we do employee development-wise. We have a lot of leadership training, management training. One of the things that came from the state is all managers receive the same training, which includes our setting of the expectations of managers for the state of Ohio. So all managers working in the state of Ohio, whether or not at DOT, they get the same message. So that's a really good training program. Probably we have 88 counties throughout Ohio. Each one has a county manager. This group, the county manager group, is very unique in the work that they oversee the folks working on the highways. So they require special training. We do have a large training program to help them do the things they need to do. Our largest training program is the Highway Technician Academy. We train all 3,000 plus employees that work on the roadways. They advance through levels. We do have a union environment. There's a contract. We have a memorandum of understanding. We work through that, and it's all tied together. Very large program, runs year-round, gets people trained. We have a flexible workforce for that. We also have a very large equipment training program, as well as soft skills, various offerings. So Lean at ODOT looks very similar to what Michael was talking about. We have a partnership with Lean Ohio. I've got all of our training from Lean Ohio. We do share training materials. We are very connected to that Lean Liaison. That keeps our skills up. I am the Lean Liaison for the Department of Transportation. And it's a really good group to kind of connect with and see what everyone's doing. Training, we do Lean training here, which I'll talk a little bit about. And it's really getting folks to recognize the benefits of what Lean is and reducing that waste, and then seeing the tools in action, using the tools that are available to them. We do Kaizens. We call them Lean events here. They are a little bit smaller scale. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's really getting those folks to see the tools in action, and this is one of the ways that we do that. These are a list of the belts in our office. So I was one of those fortunate ones to go through that very first round of training when Cintas received black belt. We have 2 black belts in the office, 2 green belts, and 1 camo belt. The remainder of we have 6 15 people trained across the agency. Most of them are in the Greenbelt area. And Michael's office is very supportive of folks going through, and we have a good partnership there. This is what a lean event or a Kaizen event looks like at ODOT. Some of the challenges when we had this first rolled out was the 5 days. Our folks were not very happy with 5 people being away from the workplace for 5 days, so that was a big challenge for us. So we had to modify it. They were more accepting of the 3 days. We basically cover everything that you would cover in a typical Kaizen within 3 days. And how we're able to do that is we really focus on scoping. So we make sure that scope is just right and that we're covering the right topics to get through. We're doing just-in-time training to introduce those lean tools and have folks understand what they're for. So we've had some successes, and I'll go through some of those. Some of the stuff that we've worked on is our aggregate pre-qualification process. And I'll just cover some highlights of that event. Basically, they were getting 90% of applications were renewals that came in, and the big thing with this process was they were all wrong. So they would have to review, there was this back and forth. So everyone got into the room and talked about how they can improve the forms, simplify the process. They have district aggregate coordinators. They streamlined the quality control plan, separated the different certifications out. They put the renewal processes on a fast track because most of the time there was not that many changes. So that was some of the successes there. So they reduced the process steps from 45 to 25. Functions were reduced from 4 to 3. And then the delays from 15 to 5. We also looked at our bridge inspection process. We use a snooper truck. There was only 2 that we had, and we have over 45,000 bridges in Ohio to maintain during and on a strict inspection cycle. So this team looked at standardizing the bridge criteria, they went through and identified which bridges needed the snooper truck to be inspected. There was a lot of issues with maintenance of traffic and having the materials ready when the bridge crew got there. So they really worked on communicating and coordinating the MOT setup and the timeframes for that. Came up with a master bridge list, and they leaned up their processes so much we were actually able to help the locals, where we would share the snooper truck with the locals so we could help them utilize that truck. So it was better scheduling of the trucks to allow for more inspection of the local bridges. The staff also changed their hours. They worked longer shifts, and that was able to give them more time to get out there and to get the work done. The last one I'll just touch on real quickly is our DBE. We did a DBE process. It's our Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, very similar to the MBE that Michael talked about. Probably the biggest thing with this is the application reviews. It could take months for a DBE to get approved to do business with ODOT, and the same with MBE. That's money, that's time that these folks aren't able to do business with the state. So they reduced the process steps from 88 to 63, reduced the handoffs from 6 to 4, processing time from down to from 30, it was taking almost a year to get some of these through. So they really reduced it down to anywhere between 30 and 90 days to get these through. So that was huge for the DBE process. Some of the other things that we do, internal, external team meetings, we do a lot of facilitation, and then there's our lean training, white belt training, process mapping, and the yellow belt training we're going to do this year. So some of the successes, obviously we have great success with lean, and great success with folks embracing the tools once they really see how simple some of these can be. Some of the challenges that we've ran into are probably same things as you. Change management is always huge. You know, getting the changes to stick, making sure people leave a lean event that following Monday, you know, they're still as excited as they were when they were in the event to make these changes. Involving the right people is key to this, and then investing the time. So those are some of the challenges that we've seen and that we were able to kind of overcome just through education, involving the right people, and then when people see that these processes really do work, I mean, you've got the buy-in there. The last bucket that we're responsible for is our new learning management system. We've spent the last year and a half working on upgrading our learning management system. We are using Taleo Learn, great management tools to develop teams, employee tools to manage their own professional and personal development. There's a lot of self-service features and online content that we can offer through ODOT Learn. And this is a new system for us. We're super excited about it, but it has taken a lot of our time. So that's probably another challenge with having training and lean together. It just is time consuming. So it's a good place for it to be because you've got the training component as well as, but when you implement a new system like this, it's taken some time. So any questions? Thank you for the opportunity to present. We really appreciate it.
Well, Davina and Michael, thank you so much for that great presentation. I'm sure that there are a lot of questions from the audience right now. So like I mentioned before, we have Laura here on the chat pane, and we also welcome anyone to unmute themselves and ask a question on the speaker, on the speaker. So again, thank you both so much. That was a great presentation.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And if people are having problems unmuting, press *6 and that should work.
Hey, Michael and Davine, this is Niles Konigsberg, just one of Vivi's colleagues. I just have a quick question concerning the belts. I was curious about why you guys chose camo belts of all belts.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. You know, yeah, that's a great question, right? I don't really know the history behind why a camouflage belt was chosen. You know, I guess it could be, it is between yellow and green belt. So if you combine those colors, you kind of get a camo belt. But I think part of it had to do with what we were doing is we were calling our 4-day lean training, we were calling it boot camp. So we were calling it Lean Ohio Boot Camp. We kind of went with that name, that title. So it also made sense to kind of use that military style, you know, that camouflage belt to go with the boot camp training. But yeah, great question. I wish I had a better answer, but that's kind of how we came up with it.
Well, there's the Brad Paisley song too.
Hi,
So Craig, I see you had a question. So there's 9 of us in the Office of Employee Development and Lean.
Yeah.
And I can talk a little bit about how the Lean Ohio Black Belt program is structured. I think there's a question from Megan. So yeah, I know I just kind of went over it briefly, but our Black Belt program, we were offering it internally. So Davine and I went through, and it was a partnership with the private sector through the Centos Corporation, but we do offer Black Belt through Lean Ohio now, and it's about 5 weeks long. So let me explain a little bit about what that means. So the Lean Ohio Boot Camp is like the first week, or 4 days, okay? That's the first week. And then the Green Belt is the second week. So our Black Belt training is an additional 3 weeks from that. So a total of roughly about 5 weeks. And, the boot camp looks a lot at lean tools. Green Belt gets into like the Six Sigma side of things, the data analysis. And our Black Belt, obviously continues the Six Sigma side of things using DMAIC and things like that, but it has a heavy focus on facilitating Kaizen events as well. So that's what makes our program, I guess, maybe slightly unique, is it is like a whole week of just facilitating these events that Davina and I talked about. Yeah, thanks for that question. There's another, oh, sorry.
Oh,
Go
so
ahead.
you were probably looking at the same thing. I was just going to read off the chat that says Lean curriculum development. May you share the information sources and processes used to model the course content by state DOT audiences?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I understand the question right, but yeah. So basically, a lot of our curriculum is available on our website under the training tab. We actually have our entire boot camp training, that 4-day lean training that we do the most of. That's actually available on our website. People can access that. The entire course manual is out there. All the examples we use, the videos we use, so you can kind of see, how we take what we learned through the private sector and apply it to government.
So when we share the like the wipeout training, we now offer that through our learning management system. So that's just a course. We have received the Yellow Belt program from Lean, Ohio, so we're going to begin teaching that this year. But the Green Belt and the Black Belt really remain with Lean, Ohio. They have the instructors there to teach that. I don't see that coming to us where we're going to start teaching that. Now, if there is a need, we probably could. But right now, those two programs and the Camo Belt program are really handled by Lean, Ohio for us.
Yeah, great question. We find with Lean, Ohio, a lot of the tools that are going to be used are learned in those first series of training programs that Davine just mentioned. The white, the yellow, the boot camp. That's really what people are using. At least we see a lot of at the government level are those types of lean tools. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for the note on the Lean Ohio website. We appreciate that.
I noticed we have another question in the chat asking that they're starting to have meetings in North Carolina like Ohio has Lean Liaison meetings. Is there any best practice you could share on how you format that so practitioners get the most value from those meetings?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. So these, we find, and I'm glad to hear that North Carolina's doing the same type of thing. I mean, we find that our Lean Liaisons are so important, and they really drive the success for improvement with the state of Ohio. As far as these meetings, we like to do a number of things. Like we like to bring in outside speakers to kind of have some additional professional development, to kind of have some new outlooks on how other companies around the state are doing lean. We also, like, part of these meetings are those belt presentations. So we think that's an extra incentive for liaisons to come, is to see what other type of projects are going on throughout the state. Because really, if you think about it, if someone's doing a Greenbelt project on a hiring process or a construction process, chances are other agencies, they have those same challenges with a process that's very similar. So we like to do a number of things, kind of provide an update on what Lean Ohio is doing, bring in outside speakers to get new ideas for improvement, and to also do belt presentations. So that's kind of how we structure our liaison meetings. Great question.
Hi, could you also potentially talk about your processes for identifying potential projects, conducting research before the event, and determining whether it's a project you'd like to pursue?
Sure, yeah, we similar to Davine, we do a lot of scoping up front. So before we even do a project or any sort of event, there's probably, 3 to 5 meetings to talk about what that process is that we're going to look at. And then, and Davine will probably agree with me, a lot of times we have these initial meetings, there's not a lot of data collected ahead of time. So a lot of upfront work is working with that agency or that department to collect data. What is the data telling you about this process? We don't want to know it isn't working. Why isn't it working? What's the data saying? So there's a lot of data collection beforehand. As far as whether or not it's a project we'd like to pursue, it's not that Lean Ohio really turns down any sort of project. I mean, we like to see projects that align well to strategic initiatives and KPIs at an agency. I mean, that's obviously a given. But if it's a smaller project within just one department at an agency, you know, we try to look for belts within that agency that maybe could facilitate that as a belt project. So not everything's a Kaizen event or a lean event. A lot of times, you know, if it doesn't align quite well with what we want to do, we'll see if there's a kind of someone trained at that agency that would like to take that on as a belt project.
And we have the similar here at DOT, very similar process. Most of our projects come to us through usually the deputy director of the division or the administrator of the office. They come and they say, hey, we've got this problem. Can you fix it? That's usually what we get. So then we do what, like Michael said, we sit down, we have 3 to 5, just kind of talk through processes, trying to get the scope right. What's the real issue? A lot of things, sometimes we see it's really management issues. So we do work through some of that. And then we spend a lot of time focusing on data because we never get the data up front. Collect that data and then get the scope right and then go from there. Not always a lean event. We do just a lot of process mapping too. So that's usually very insightful to the offices and divisions, just to see that current process on the wall and visual. So that's kind of how we do it here.
Yeah, great question.
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good. That's this is Eduardo Gomez. Yeah, great question about online project management sites. We get that question a lot actually at Lean Ohio, and I'm embarrassed to say we do not use any sort of online or automated project management. We've looked at a few. We're in the process of looking at a few. We had a demo recently from a major project management consultant come in and show us what they can do. But right now we're still working with a lot of kind of spreadsheets, things like that to kind of manage these projects. So I wish I had a better answer, but we do not use a lot of online project management right now.
No, we don't either at DOT. We have standard templates for scoping documents. We have a standard template for report out. We have a fact sheet that we use, kind of spreadsheets. We don't have anything either. So that's a great question.
Yeah, this is David Mullaney with Colorado Office of Information Technology, and I would just encourage you to make sure that those spreadsheets are shared so you have one source of truth, fewer files to go look at and so forth, fewer steps to go find them. Here at Colorado, we've been using Google Sheets for a lot of that, and the Google Drive. Yeah, and Gary can put us in touch if you want to talk some more about that. And yeah, so I've also looked at some different online project management things, and really the project manager role always boils down to a project manager chasing down people, and the whole organizational change management is an emerging area that needs continual effort.
Let's see, Davina, Michael, I have a question. This is Vivi. I'm curious about your Sharpen the Saw program, and I guess I'm just wondering what are maybe some of the most influential people you've had come in from the private sector, and what kind of insight have they shared with you that you've been able to apply to the public sector?
Yeah, great question, Vivi. We use a lot of the Sharpen the Saw training to kind of partner with professors at different universities, specifically OSU. They come in and they kind of provide some new tools for our network that maybe we don't cover in some of our training. One of the most recent ones, I guess, and Davina actually mentioned this too as a challenge at ODOT, and we see it. I mean, it's the exact same thing at the state level, is change management. You know, organizational change management is such a big deal. So that's not something we currently were offering in our belt training. So for these Sharpen the Saw trainings, we try to bring in people that offer something that's unique that they haven't already got through the Lean Ohio training program. So that's just one of the examples. As far as big name, or, you know, people that have come in, I can't think of any like major names, but we've done some online webinars with Karen Martin, if you're familiar with her. She specializes in the value stream mapping, so we did some work with her, and again, a lot of like professors from Ohio State.
So to add on to the change management training, I told you we just developed a learning management system here. It took a year and a half to do. There was a huge change management component with that project that was probably not as successful as we would have liked it to be. But during that, what we did was we all went through a training to become ProSci change management certified. So ProSci is they have their own kind of language and format regarding change management. It was really an outstanding program. So we are certified to teach that here, which was very helpful especially in the work that we're doing with lean and facilitation. Can't say enough good things about ProSci. It's just very structured. It's very organized. It has what you need to do at every level, your sponsorship level, you know, your worker level. Just very good tools and techniques for that methodology. So.
Great, thank you for that nice answer. And all right, I think that's gonna wrap up the session with Michael and Daveen today. Thank you both so much for the great presentation. And I think I speak for everyone when I say that we learned a lot from your presentation as well as your question session. So now I think we're gonna switch gears, and I would like to introduce Jeff Cleland from the Maryland Department of Transportation for our second presentation of the day. Jeff, are you online with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. Could I get you to request access to my screen, please?
Just did.
Great. All right.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for inviting us to speak. Again, I'm Jeff Cleland. I'm the Chief of Staff to the Administrator and Director of a new office called Organizational Excellence and Strategy within the MDOT State Highway Administration. So we're just one entity of MDOT, obviously State Highway, with about 3,400 employees and about 1,400 contractors in the organization. So I just wanted to take you kind of through some of our new initiative and what we've been doing. I've only been into the organization since March. I come from a think tank background where I was doing some like labor force economics work, mostly around military and veterans, and actually ran a community of practice in the state of New York for homeless veterans for a couple of years before that role as well. So appreciate what y'all are doing and what you put together here. So let me just click into it. So yeah, just getting into the agenda here, you know, I'll give you a little history of what we've been doing, kind of our process improvement methodology, mentality, the 4 pillars, and how we're kind of applying some of that process and data to what we do here, and then the next steps for what this organization is going to be doing. So when I first came to State Highway, we have this project called Project Greenlight, and I was introduced to it, and there's 5 or 6 senior managers, to include our administrator of State Highway, the deputies, myself, and our director of IT. And it's kind of like this Shark Tank, if you will, program that we run, where employees from all across the organization, whether you are one of our maintenance techs out in the field or you're one of our engineers, can come and present ideas that will help move this organization forward. So we've had everything from, you know, updating our Outlook to use the calendar properly for booking rooms, to this idea of organizational excellence and strategy division, which was actually presented by 2 of our contractual employees in HR who are industrial organizational psychologists by trade, master's degrees from here at the University of Baltimore. So it took a little while to get this idea moving, but our administrator, being very forward thinking, he came in and said, this is a great idea. They found me to be the director of the organization, and I actually came in and hired the 2 industrial organizational psychologists to work with me on this kind of change management and data, data forward organization. It was funny that the folks from Ohio mentioned ProSci, because the 2 iOS folks that I have working for me are actually certified through ProSci and big proponents of that change management strategy. So when we look at like process improvement here, we're probably in different areas of our organization at different levels of this. You know, where some of the areas are so new to the idea that we're just trying to find the data to identify the problem or identify the value of like process improvement. And then some of us are actually in the seek perfection form. But what the Organizational Excellence and Strategy Division is trying to do is kind of look at this enterprise solution, figuring out where we are, so that way some offices that are more advanced right now aren't making these solutions to fix their own problems that are actually having some downstream effects that are impacting other offices that maybe aren't there yet. So we're really trying to look at it from this high level for the organization and how we can improve kind of across the board. So getting into our four pillars, and this is kind of our strategy for Maryland State Highway, you know, we have communication, customer experience, innovation, and modernization. So when we talk about communication, one of the interesting things when we came in here, I was talking to our communications and our HR people. We have some issues recruiting right now. The economy's good. We're close to DC. A lot of folks choose to go work in the federal government over state government. So we're looking at new recruiting strategies. And I was like, well, who runs our LinkedIn? And no one had an answer for that. And it turns out we have a LinkedIn, but nobody uses it to recruit. So we weren't recruiting some of these engineering folks that we need. And so we were looking at these processes for HR and communications and kind of bringing together those two so that we can get out there and start posting jobs on these modern sites. And, you know, I think we do a pretty good job using Twitter. We had some pretty funny posts over the winter when we had some snowmageddon stuff here on the East Coast. But, you know, we're trying to use these and figure out these processes to make it so we can have information come from our shop that, let's say, is in Western Maryland to our offices here in Baltimore to get it out to the public. We're looking at doing some live streaming of our bids, which is an interesting process in itself, but it's just trying to be a more transparent organization. And then our secretary of MDOT, Big MDOT, is big on these annual quarterly reports. And many of you maybe even know Pete Ron, I'm assuming just from his time with AASHTO and the other states he's been involved in. But we do a program called Accelerator where it's essentially a report card for the last 3 months. And what we've noticed, though, is that it's kind of this mad rush towards the end and that there's no real processes built into this. So that our office, the Organizational Excellence and Strategy, is trying to build some process around this so that we're not in this mad rush to present data every 3 months. We actually have live dashboards that we can present data every day if we wanted to. So we're just trying to be a better organization as far as communication, whether it's internal to our employees or external to the taxpayers of Maryland or the folks passing through Maryland on our highways. Second one being customer service. We're always aiming for this 100% customer satisfaction. Probably not possible. Even Amazon doesn't have 100% customer satisfaction, but that still needs to be our goal. And how do we get to that goal? And we're looking at that of it's changing our internal processes to get there. So an example that we have here right now with what we're trying to do in our team is our CCMS reporting, our customer care, customer management, where folks can put in complaints. So let's say it's a pothole that is on a road in your community and you put the complaint in and it goes to that district office. Some of our districts, especially the ones near DC or near Baltimore, are receiving over 3,800 of those complaints a year that they have to respond to, every single one of them. And so right now what we're doing is we're looking at working with IT to build in a better system to help the people that are actually having to manage this process to where we can maybe batch some of these complaints. Like we know it's a pothole at a certain intersection and you get 300 complaints. That should only be one response, not 300 responses. So we're trying to use technology essentially to help the people fix the process. In that way, we give a better experience to our customer. So then we're looking at some of this innovation. And again, I go back to this kind of process mapping from an enterprise level where we're just trying to figure out where we are in this lean process, if you will. And I wish we were as advanced as Ohio right now. And actually, I'm going to take some of those trainings back and see if we can start implementing them across the organization. But again, we're trying to break down these siloed solutions. And I have an example of that happened in the last couple of years with our finance team. They had to build a system so that they could track receipts, and it made their life really easy. They made this process simple, and it was a technology solution. What they didn't realize is that they just pushed the hard work further downstream to the executive assistants and administrative chiefs that we have in our organization. So while they fixed their own problem, they actually made the process, I don't know, can't put a number to it, maybe 10 times harder for the other people in the organization. And we can't keep doing that. We have to break down these silos within our organization so that, we can have some overlap in these systems. We're also looking, as far as kind of innovation goes, I talked about accelerator, is figuring out if we're even measuring the right things to get to these goals. Because sometimes it seems like we're just measuring the easiest thing. So at the end of the year, we can say we paved X amount of miles of road. And that's an easy measure to figure out because we have that built into our contracts and built in. But are we actually measuring something deep down that we can make changes off of, that we can use to make our organization better, to make our lives easier, and to give a better quality product to our consumer? And it's a bit of a culture shift to get here, because what we're trying to do is use data to essentially be predictive in a way, and when you add that into the equation, it adds a little bit of risk, and we're not necessarily comfortable with risk yet at this organization. So what we're trying to do from a senior management level is really start providing that top cover to where we can say it's okay to take a little bit of that risk to see if we can do something better. I believe it was Colin Powell that says, give me 40% of the information and I can make a decision 100% of the time, or something along those lines. And while we sit back and wait for the perfect solution, we're not really necessarily getting to good enough in certain areas. So trying to provide that top cover so that we can have this culture of innovation to where people can say, I can do this a better way. It's just maybe I'll mess it up 3 times before I get it right. And we have to make sure that that's okay. And then I get towards this idea of the overall goal, modernization. And I have a military background, and it was something that we had always said in our unit was mission first, people always. You can't get to your mission unless you take care of your people. You can buy the best technology, you can buy the best equipment, and if you don't have the people to run that technology and run that equipment, you're never going to meet your mission. So we're looking at this kind of from a cultural aspect, in that we do need to modernize our systems. Absolutely. We have an HR system that was actually coded before I was born, and I won't tell you when I was born, but it's fairly old. So we have that, but if we were to update our system tomorrow to, let's say, Workday or something along those lines, we would have to retrain all of our people. You can't just expect them to change overnight. And again, I go back to, that's why we brought in the organizational psychologist and the kind of brain power there to manage that change as we do bring the technology systems into the 21st century. We want to bring our people up with them. So what we're doing right now, I've given you an example from our HR side. We have this old HR system that just doesn't talk to anything else. Even if we were to have LinkedIn recruiting, it can't feed into our HRS system because it's just so old. It's a 1980s DOS coding. So what we're looking at doing is kind of a workaround where we wait for our procurement to go through for a better HRIS system. And we're using Microsoft Power BI to start extracting some of that data. And as long as we have that EIN number as a unique identifier, we're able to match that with some other data across the organization, including our equal opportunity, including our training, which we use a Cornerstone platform. So we can start matching some of this HR data. And what we're starting to see is that we can essentially become predictive based on personas for when people want to leave, maybe when they start checking out, when they need more training by building that Cornerstone platform. So we can we know if you're a University of Maryland grad and we hire you at 22 as an engineer and you take advantage of all of our training and get your PE in 4 years, you're probably going to leave between 4 and 5 years. And we can essentially build recruiting strategies off of that and some kind of progression management, which, we run into some union issues with that, but still being a little bit more predictive. So that way we're not losing an engineer and then it takes us 6 months to fill that spot, and trying to close that gap of knowledge, gap of employment, and make sure that we're keeping up with the private sector and the federal government and hiring. So we just wanted to kind of bring that out and show that, modernization, it's much more than this new stuff. It's dealing with people, and it's dealing with this new way of thinking to go with the new stuff that we get. So kind of wrapping this up with the next steps, and happy to take any questions and share anything of what we've done. we're really looking at, our administrator has this great vision of being this organization that's data driven, and we make our decisions based off of solid data, sound data, instead of off of these outliers and anecdotes that have happened in the past. It's our secretary, Pete Ron, has said it a bunch of times, and that policies are the scars of past transgressions. And so we sometimes find these policies that are outdated and they're old, and it's because one person messed up 20 years ago and we're still kind of paying for that. And it's, how can we start peeling that back, using data to prove that we're not going to make those same mistakes again, being more transparent to our taxpayers, to our bosses, essentially. We're going to be moving towards this kind of auto updating dashboards. Right now, like I said, we're using kind of a workaround with Power BI to build these HR dashboards, but eventually we want to get our IT team involved, just start auto updating these every night at midnight. Let's say it's going to update our spreadsheets and these dashboards that we built, so everyone can see, they can see where their vacancies are. They can see where contractors are supplementing full-time employees. We want to make this as transparent to our entire organization as possible. And one of the other things we're trying to do with this is we're really trying to match our HR, our human capital here with market data as well for recruiting efforts, so that we know, we need to know what the market is looking for in people, so that we know that that's what we need, because we're still set in that mentality of, we're state government. I think we have a line around the corner of people wanting to work here. It's not really that way anymore. We don't have a line around the corner, and we don't necessarily have the recruiting set up to fix that problem. So just being more forward thinking, and the overall goal here is just to be a more efficient agency with these new processes, and using data to kind of guide these processes. We're focused on being the best agency for our customer, the Maryland taxpayer, and we sometimes do that to the detriment of our own people that work here. Our goal is to be efficient and with our happy customers, but we also want to have happy employees who want to work here and want to make the MDOT State Highway Administration a great place to work. And I think by doing this, by using these new processes and using data to guide these processes, we really can kind of inculcate that culture to this organization to make this place better. But I'll leave it here for any questions you have, and happy to share anything, and actually really happy to just be part of this group now from now on to start learning more from what other states are doing, and see if we can help.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Great presentation. So now I'd love to open the floor. We've got the chat open as well as the mic, so please feel free to jump in with any questions that you have for Jeff. Oh, looks like we got one.
So we have one on the chat pane already. Has your DOT done a lien project on your highway work permits process?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
Yes, so the question is, has your DOT done a lien project on your highway work permits process?
We have not, that I know of, done a specific lien. And like I said, we're kind of, depending on which office you're looking at, they might be in a different stage of lien. So we have done, I guess it depends on what permit you're talking about. We've done some processes around permits for heavy trucks going across the road. I don't know if you're actually talking about access permits or permits for hauling. So, but we have done a process, and actually I believe Rolls-Royce bought the project that we built for that, because we can, I think it's within a couple hours, approve every truck coming off of our port system onto our highways, which was built by one of our contractors. So we have done it in that area. As far as like access permit goes and things like that, I do not believe we have.
Question for Jeff. What software do you use for that presentation?
So yeah, we're trying to be a little bit futuristic here. We actually use Prezi. And this was something that our administrator, Greg Slater, is big on. He likes to kind of how it rolls through, and you can do some really neat stuff. I'm fairly beginner at this, and actually once you purchase the license, you have access to their people at Prezi, so they kind of helped me put this thing together. But yeah, so it's Prezi. It's pretty cool, and it's shareable, which we're learning right now. So yeah.
Neat.
Jeff, Vivi here. So I was hoping maybe you could dive a little bit more into what you were saying about, getting people to be comfortable with taking risks. I know that's something that we, as far as innovation goes, I know that's something that we're really trying to do here at CDOT, maybe talking a little bit about where you meet this resistance and then the best way to kind of target and make these people more willing to take risks and innovate.
Yeah, part of it is, and I appreciate this question because it's something that we kind of run into a lot, and I hear it often. I'm sure everyone on the call does. It's just, oh, that's the way we've always done it, and the way we've always done it has been safe from, let's say, the audit, because that's the kind of big scary thing at the end of the year when the audits are coming in. Are we going to get in trouble? So what it has kind of come down to, but right now we have a travel policy that is very outdated and cumbersome for everybody involved. And at the end of the travel, you're supposed to write a letter to the administrator saying what you learned and what you've done. But we have a lot of travel here, and the administrator necessarily doesn't have time to read those, so it's essentially a wasted effort. And he asked, well, how can we kind of delegate this down? So what we did was we went into the policy and said, what does the policy actually say and how was it interpreted, so that we can provide that top cover like I talked about from a senior manager. So we found that the policy said that it doesn't have to be completed. So we were able to actually delegate that down to a senior manager level instead of the administrator, and say it doesn't have to be a full report. It can just be an email or something like that. But what that then allowed was this kind of top cover as we send this memo out that the employee, they can make this change. So that's kind of one simple answer. I'm sure some of them will get a little bit harder than that, maybe when the policy is different. But it really is kind of creating that senior manager top cover so that when the audit does come in, we've done our research, we've done that. And it's just getting people comfortable taking that risk because they're essentially their boss. I don't necessarily like that term, but their boss said it was okay for them to do that.
Great, thank you. Again, I encourage anyone to jump in. We have Jeff here ready and willing to answer any questions that people might have.
I will give one unsolicited answer to project management, and that it was something that I took from the work I used to do. My smaller team, we use Trello for project management, and I love I get the email from Taco from Trello every morning or whatever, however he sends them out. But I love Trello for project management.
Hi, we do actually have a question. Do you still use the Shark Tank approach to project ideas?
We do. We actually have one coming up in the next couple of weeks. We do them every quarter, actually. And we don't know, we as the senior management team, we actually don't know what's going to be presented until the day they show up. So we've had some really interesting, everything from this idea of organizational excellence. We had someone present the idea of heated coils on bridges recently. So we get some really interesting ones. We're actually looking at, from the last presentation, a chip within our state IDs for our folks that are out in the field when they have to purchase lunch, when they're working overtime and things like that, similar to a credit card chip. And that will actually help our finance team better process this instead of getting receipts and stuff. So we're going to be doing one in the next couple of weeks, and it's a really cool program. I'd love to share kind of the concept if anyone wanted to connect afterwards.
Hey, Jeff, this is Gary Vance. That's terrific. I was wondering if we could post some of that, and not right now clearly, but post some of that to the Lean Interchange website also under a folder that we'd had that would say Maryland.
Yeah, that'd be great. If you want to send me an email after, I can get something together.
We'll do it. Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, we have another question kind of building on the Shark Tank one that you addressed. Do you employ any incentives or recognition strategies for participants in the Shark Tank program?
So we do. When we post, when you do your presentation in front of the administrator and the deputies and myself and the IT director, you first get like a certificate of appreciation for, being an engaged employee. You get a picture with the administrator. And then you can't just give us an idea and walk away from it. So what we try to do is keep that person that gave us the idea engaged in the process from start to finish, because mostly because that's the office they're part of. They're going to have the inside knowledge. So like so a team like ours could come in and help it, but they know the ins and outs. So they get the recognition of also once that project is completed, we can send out emails. We do at the end of the year just our employee recognition that kind of ups your points, if you will, for something like that. But along the entire process, we do some sort of recognition for the people that are engaged in that, because it is, you're taking a risk, kind of stepping out there and presenting a new idea to the administrator and deputies.
Thank you, Jeff. So I think we're going to move on to the next portion of our forum, but do keep those questions coming in for Jeff. We'll have time during the open forum if anything else comes up. So let's see here. All right. So in the spirit of continuous improvement, we're also looking to evolve our transportation lean forum to the next level. And some people in the audience might recognize this survey that Gary sent out last week. And what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get input from all of our members on what they want to hear discussed during the open forum to sort of shape our discussion a little bit more and allow people some time to think beforehand to ask those questions that they might not think of right on the spot. And we did get some good feedback on the survey that we're hoping can shape some of today's discussion. If you take a look at the screen right now, these were some of the answers that we had submitted, and I now encourage you to take a minute and look at the screen, and anyone who has any experience or expertise in any of the areas that our members highlighted as topics of interest to learn more about, I really encourage you to jump in and share your thoughts. We want to make this a conversation and hear from as many different people as we can. So I give the floor up to you all.
So again, this is David Mullaney from Project Management, part of Colorado. I'll just open the kimono here and share a current challenge that we have and to help. Our executive sponsor asked a lean fellow from the Department of Natural Resources to come help a multi-agency project that actually wasn't part of the natural resources, but he came to look at how we were supporting our customers and helped to lead the front end representatives from each of the agencies that did receive customer calls and so forth. And MyBiz Colorado went live several weeks ago, and the number of calls have dropped a lot because of the designed features put in there to make it a more user-friendly system and to have a lot of self-answering pages there. So that was all very good. And even though the project is wrapping up, we are continuing to push to get those metrics that prove where we are and what our focus needs to be going forward. And that has continued to
You guys,
Hi, everyone. Sorry, we're experiencing some technical difficulties right now with the presentation. Our internet just gave up on us, but if you're still on the line, I see that we still have about 30 people on the line right now. We're still interested in hearing your stories. Anything like that, we just experienced a little bit of some technical difficulties. So if anyone still has some questions or comments or success stories or anything that they're struggling with, please feel free to share those. Very interested to hear stories and whatnot.
He's the one projecting now. Mine died.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
But you don't have internet, baby.
Yep. Everything.
Do you want me to get it up for you?
Mine is.
I think we've got our technical problems at least solved for the most part. So why don't we just move right along to some other questions or anything like that. Hopefully you can still see our screen, but right now we're just going to open it up to some more questions. So if there's anything going on, please remember to unmute your mic and share your experiences. I think we already have some questions coming in.
Yes, we do. We have a question that asks that we do an employee engagement survey but haven't had much success with measurable change. Does anyone have any advice? So I think this is just a question to the general audience. I know several of us do employee engagement surveys, but how do you measure successful change? So let's open the floor to that one.
Yeah.
So again, in Colorado, we use the, what was it, 40X? And so we have our wildly important goals, and then those need to have measures associated with them. I wouldn't claim that it's made for revolutionary change, but it has made for measurable progress, which is a first start. So if you haven't looked at 40X, that might be something else to consider. 4 disciplines of execution, that's what it stands for.
Gotcha.
Hello, can everyone hear me? This is Amanda in Pennsylvania.
Hi, we can hear you.
Wonderful. So we do an employee engagement survey as well. We try to measure our change through engaging our organizations to do plans of action. So rather than taking the data that we gain from the survey and using that as our benchmark, we have individual meetings with them after their survey to interpret the results with them and then give them feedback on areas where they can make change. Over a 2-year period, they then review each of their areas, they put plans in place, and then they report out at the end of that time.
Great, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Do we have any other questions coming in right now?
No, but please feel free to chat them in and I can read them out.
Just got another one.
Back up and running?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Do we have any questions for?
Also want to throw out there, if anyone has any additional questions for our presenters, I know that we still have all 3 of them still on the line.
This is Gary Van Such. Additional areas of interest, measurement, and benefits realization. That seems to come up every call. I love the stuff that you've got in Ohio. Is Michael or Davine still online? Some of the stuff that you've discussed there about measurement. Could you go more into that? I love the adding up the the number of hours that are now reassignable. Is that done on a project-by-project basis, Michael? Are you following that from Results Ohio some other way?
Michael, are you there?
Or Devine or somebody else from our friends there in the Buckeye State? Okay, and we may have lost them during the. I apologize for the outage we had. Connectivity, technology is wonderful except when it's not.
You know, this third question that we have up here on the screen about making that transition to electronic communications for employees who don't always have access to email on a daily basis. Has anyone sort of gone through that and could maybe discuss some of the challenges as well as some of the successes about going through that process, and what's worked to continue to allow these employees to feel included in the organization?
So this is Craig. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Craig with Nevada DOT. We partner with our university, University of Nevada, Reno, to administer our survey. And what we found works best is to do just a combination of everything we can think of. So for example, they start out with email communication, lots of follow-up reminders, and then eventually they do send out a paper format to those that have not responded to the survey. And I'm not sure what our exact response rate, but it has improved since we've been using multiple methods.
Great, thank you for sharing.
This reminds me when I was a software engineer at a large software hardware company. We were about to have a major release, and I got a call from pretty far up the chain just to my desk, and he asked me what I thought about our readiness to go live. And I was able to tell him why we weren't ready to go live, and in fact we postponed that go live. So as a young new frontline person there, getting that personal inquiry meant a lot. I still remember it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reach down can be really valuable and make people feel like they're valued and like their ideas are important. Definitely. All right, well, I think we're going to put out a last call for any additional questions or comments. Also, feel free to jump in. Does anyone have any recent success stories they would like to share with the group? We'd also love to hear that.
Or text them in and Laura will read them out for us.
I'll just point out the form you're using, of course, is a Google form we saw on the previous screen, and we are standardizing for our lessons learned surveys. I think this week there's information going out about that, and I got to participate in that recently in terms of making a copy of the form, tweaking it for our particular audience, and then sending it out and collecting the information. I hadn't used that tool before, and it's pretty easy to learn how to do, and of course you can leverage what's already out there.
Definitely.
So we did have one last question, asking if there was a directory of contact information for people who participate in this forum. And actually, I think our team might be able to speak to that a little bit. Gary, do you know that?
If you go, right, if you go to the Lean Interchange site, the website, I'm pretty sure that if you plunk around out there, plunk is one of these technical terms we use at CDOT, plunk around for a while, that there is contact information out there for various folks. And of course, off of the meeting invitation, there are email addresses. I know it's not always easy to match up people to email addresses. For any of the presentations, we always have that information in the presentation. You've seen that in the slides today. For prior presentations, we actually do have that information in the various folders on the Lean Interchange website. One additional thing that we're going to be doing, we're revising our own, improving our own innovation and improvement website at codot.gov. We love sharing things there. We are going to share prior Lean Transportation Forum presentation decks out there. We haven't actually done that quite yet, except for one of the decks, the one that we had last time. But if you go to the Lean Interchange page there, we talk a little bit, I'm sorry, the Transportation Lean Forum page there. We talk a little bit about that, and probably in a week or two, you'll actually see PDFs of the prior presentations, which again include information for contacting those folks. We think we can go all the way back to when we actually started having video teleconferences back in late 2012. The very first session in June 2012 was audio teleconference. We've come a long way since that first three-state session. But we're planning to post that. So try that. Try going to the Lean Interchange website. We think that's there's a lot of good contact information out there.
Great. Thank you, Gary. All right, and I think that's all that we have time for today.
Let me jump in, though, for 30 seconds. I want to thank Vivi, our executive producer, one of our intrepid interns. For the next session in October, Niles, another one of our intrepid interns, is going to be executive producer for that. We're looking for folks to present. And one of the executive producers from the past, Laura, is actually leaving our team here at CDOT. That's sad news for us, but good news is she's staying in public service here in Colorado. We'll be joining the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. So if any of our friends at CDLE are listening in, Laura's going to be joining your team there at CDLE very soon. So we thank Laura for prior help here on Transportation Lean Forum and wish her the best.
Yes. And I think that wraps things up for today. Thank you again, everyone, and we will see you in October for our next Transportation Lean Forum. Thank you.
All right, we're